A couple of months ago, the entire conversation circled around Black Myth Wukong. Many things came up, including the fact that you cannot play it on Xbox just yet. Allegations were actually put out that Sony money hatted the game. Then there were other conversations that, apparently they paid for the port to get prioritized, and nothing has been confirmed so far. But if you ask me what I believe based on a lot of what we've heard, I don't think it's only based on the technical issues that the developers are citing for the Series S, seeing that other games are being released for the Series S without any problems. I think PlayStation must have had a hand in that. But that is my belief. I could be wrong in that particular hypothesis, but nothing stops me from holding that hypothesis, seeing how PlayStation's major strategy in its competition is super anti-consumer and is trying to pretty much harm Xbox in that regard. However, one thing that I've always kind of thought about is how fast a lot of these stories eventually get obliterated from the circuit. Because not only do Xbox players not have a game like Wukong, they now have another game that they can actually look forward to playing that is a hack and slash that really seems to bring some of those elements in terms of gameplay. And this game is coming to the Xbox platform. It is a third-party game, and the game is going to be releasing on other platforms as well. This is the game called WuChang, Falling Feathers. Now, this is also by another, I think, maybe AA scale developer out of, the East. And to me, I think the Souls-like action RPG is exploding a lot. There's just a lot of good work being done by From Software that it's flattery to them at this point that people want to, make games that, in a sense, represent some of the things that they're doing. They put a post a few hours here ago saying, "Thank you, Xbox, for believing in WuChang, Falling Feathers, and giving us our big break." So I think Xbox hooked them up with a Times Square, billboard, which, is pretty cool. And they have the partner presentation here in a few hours. Today's the 16th of my recording of this video. And I think tomorrow, hopefully, we're going to be seeing more about this game. And again, I think this really does juxtapose also Xbox's own business strategy compared to PlayStation. I don't think Xbox is really worried anymore about the money hatting that was being done a while back. And I'm sure many of you remember, back then when Phil Spencer said, what PlayStation will do is it will take a lot of games that, are in its ecosystem. It will money hat these games and then eventually try to harm Xbox. So Xbox games that are appearing on PlayStation or something like that, PlayStation will take that money and then go, block some other games from coming and still try to harm them on top of everything. But I think this notion is changing, and I've said this before. In fact, I think I mentioned this specifically with Final Fantasy. I said, I don't think Square Enix can be sustainable with the way that they've been doing business. And I actually told some of my audience members a long time ago, I said, you might want to, bet me 25 cents on this, but I don't see how many publishers continue to lose in sales and harm their brand by staying as exclusive games with PlayStation, especially as we go forward. Maybe old agreements will probably still persist, but as we start to go forward, I think a lot of brands and a lot of games are going to pretty much have to abandon that business strategy because it has really, really put Square Enix in a very interesting place. And again, I want to shun the fanboy comments that these Square Enix sales were okay and, Square Enix has unrealistic expectations. That, to me, is one of the most dishonest things I've heard people say. And I've even heard some so-called podcasters and content creators say things like that. And I'm like, how do you mean they have unrealistic expectations? PlayStation has established IPs that can thrive on the PlayStation platform in many cases, like God of War, which, sold a lot, and Ragnarok, which has sold about, according to reports, 15 million copies. So it can stay sustainable because it's a 20-year IP that's pretty much known to be a brand of PlayStation. If you're interested, you already know that you can go play that game on the PlayStation platform. However, Final Fantasy has been one that made its way to other platforms. And so people are quite aware that, Final Fantasy should be able to, meet me where I stand, because as a third-party publisher, Square Enix should have been taking these steps to basically make sure that the game was available for everyone. But they decided that they were going to get in cahoots with PlayStation and have found out that at the end of the day, the only thing that actually came out up on the upside was PlayStation. They basically got their consoles sold for people who were desperate to play Final Fantasy. And then when Square Enix decided to bring this 16 game to PC, guess who was waiting for them? The game that sold 3 or more times more than their Final Fantasy game, God of War Ragnarok. So I think a lot of publishers are starting to see what's going on. Now, partnership agreements like these are pretty cool with marketing rights. But again, I think 505 Games, who is the publisher of this, is, taking, I think they're taking a very interesting proposition, a very interesting place in how they're doing business. I looked and I was like, wow, this game is actually not exclusive to Game Pass or whatever it is. And instead, what, the developers are doing is they want to make sure that the game is available for everyone, because again, gaming is so competitive. Now, this game, I'm not saying it's going to sell as much as Wukong, because Wukong is, and I've said this before, Wukong is deep lore of, like the entire huge chunk of Asia, like literally China being a very, very significant cultural hegemony in all of Asia. And then you make a game surrounding one of its biggest, lores and, stories from, ages. You're definitely going to sell. I don't know how else we're going to put it. Well, in the West, we would have Star Wars, but, again, a lot of the creators in the Star Wars space have seemingly lost their minds or don't know what appeals to audiences in terms of storytelling. If not, Star Wars would be bigger in the West than it can actually muster right now. But Wukong is doing a great thing, and I think WuChang is going to bring that, piece to the puzzle. And if the developers at Game Science, right now they're not really, too pressed for, money. They've sold a lot, right? But I think they've probably also harmed their brand, because if this game comes out before the Wukong port comes out, I think a lot of people are going to prioritize this particular title on the Xbox side, because in their minds, they're going to say, well, I don't think this company was serious with us. And so we're going to put our money with a company that is prioritizing us, on their first day of launching a game. Inotria is also another game where the developer had mouthed off all this. Oh, well, we have our agreements with our partners, so we're going to prioritize the PlayStation version first. And then I think they saw, oh crap, these sales are not flying out the window. We're not From Software, so we need to bring our games to everybody else. And so they eventually made I don't know if it was concession or the speedy decision to port that thing, according to the developer, in 2 months. That was wild, man. I didn't know they could port these things that fast. And at the end of the day, we got that game. But again, we don't know anything about the sales. It's not a game I'm really interested in. But I think it's very, interesting overall to see Xbox making these moves and being comfortable in their own skin, the skin that we are. A massive publisher right now, and also we're playing in the console space and we're playing in the cloud space, and all of this put together is really what PlayStation is going to be freaking out for, because it's a perfect storm. And like I've said, PlayStation's hold and strange hold on all these other companies is starting to wane away, seeing not just that the companies are not maximizing their profits, but now there's also a plethora of video games and titles coming out all over the place. It just would not make any sense for them to not find a way to actually capture their audience again. They got to go find something. They got to go borrow money if they have to make games that appeal to their audiences like these. But again, I don't think it's in their DNA to do so right now, because they have 60%, maybe even more, I don't know, of their funds and their research and development in live service games. It's going to be interesting for PlayStation at the end of the day, because I just don't know. I just see things tilting differently, and Xbox looking, just much more comfortable. That's all it is. They just look comfortable. It's just weird, because this has been the company that had been dragged across the social media space for so many years. But let me hear your thoughts in the comment section. Thanks so much for watching the video. Appreciate you guys' time and audience, and hopefully we'll talk pretty soon in another one. Peace out.